Next, we'll do two problems that involve the Pythagorean theorem. So for finding the missing side length of a right triangle is a triangle that has a 90-degree angle. And when you have a triangle like that, well, the two sides that are adjacent to the right angle are called the legs. And if their side length may be A and B, and if the other side length, that's called the hypotenuse. If that length is C, then the three sides are related by the equation a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So if we do this simple problem where we find the missing side length, let's just call that x. We'll use the Pythagorean theorem, and the known lengths, like 5 squared plus 15 squared equal to x squared. And now I can go ahead and solve this equation. 5 squared, that's 25, plus 15 squared is 225. Notice that this is a quadratic equation, but I can use the square root method here because there's only one term involving an x. So I've got now 250 equals x squared, and I can solve this by taking the square root of both sides. I get x equals the square root of 250, which is approximate. So I'll just write plus or minus square root of 250 here. But I know that that's going to be approximately 15 points. Let's round this to, say, 2 decimal places. 81. I got this by plugging it into my calculator. Square root of 250 is 15.81, and so many decimal places after the decimal point. So if I rounded 2 places, the digit in the third place is a 1, which tells you to leave the digit in the second place alone. So about 15.81, and I was dealing with inches here. Okay, notice that I'm ignoring the negative version of this number because a negative length doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I'm only going to take the positive one. All right, so this was a simple exercise, but now let's apply that to a word problem. The top of a rectangular laptop has a diagonal of 17 inches. So just something to know when you're buying like a laptop or a television. If they say it's a 17-inch TV or a 17-inch laptop, they're talking about the diagonal. That's what that means. So this diagonal here is 17 inches. So what I'm going to, and if the length of the computer is 1 inch less than twice its width, find the dimensions of the computer. So what we're looking at here is, instead of considering the entire rectangle, I'm really just going to focus in on one of these two triangles here, okay? Let me say this is, let's call this L for the length, and this can be W for the width, or you can call it A and B, whatever you want. And then this side will be 17. So this is my picture, and I should know that W squared plus L squared should be equal to 17 squared. That's by the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, the other thing, I'll use this information, that the length of the computer is 1 inch less than twice its width. So the length is equal to 1 inch less than twice the width. So I'll take twice the width and then minus 1. So 2W minus 1. Okay, I'm going to use this information here. I'm going to replace L in the Pythagorean theorem with 2W minus 1. So now let me rewrite what I've got here. W squared plus, instead of L squared, I'll write 2W minus 1 squared is equal to 17 squared, which is 289. Okay, so now you should notice what you have is a quadratic equation. I'm going to have to open up these parentheses here, so I'll take 2W minus 1 times itself, which will be 4 plus 4W squared minus 2W, which will be minus 4W plus 1 equals 289, Let me go ahead and simplify one more time. I've got 5w squared minus 4w plus 1 equals 289. And now, I notice I've got a quadratic, and I can't use the square root method because I've got more than one term that involve a w. So what I'm going to do is subtract 289 from both sides in order to get the equation equal to 0. So this becomes 5w squared minus 4w minus 288 equals 0. Okay, and here again, I think what I'd like to do is use the quadratic equation, knowing that a is 5, b is negative 4, c is negative 288. So I'll use the quadratic formula. First I'll calculate b squared minus 4ac. So that will be negative 4 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 288. I don't want to do that in my head. Instead, I'll just use my calculator. So negative 4 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 288. That gives me 5,776. Great, I have half the calculation done. Now I'll go ahead and solve the equation. W equals, and it'll be negative b, well, I'll go ahead and write down the formula. Negative b plus or minus square root of this b squared minus 4ac business all over 2a. So plugging in my numbers, negative 4, so a positive 4 plus or minus positive 4 plus or minus the square root of this calculation I just did, all over 2 times a, which is 5. So that'll be 4 plus or minus square root of 5776 is 76, all over 10. Okay, and automatically, I know this is two separate numbers, 4 plus 76 over 10, or 4 minus 76 over 10. Notice this is going to give you a negative width, so I can rule that one out automatically. Okay, 4 plus 76, that's 80 divided by 10 is 8 inches. And let's go ahead and see if that answers the question. Supposed to find the dimensions of the computer. So the dimensions, that's like what's the length and what's the width. So I know that the width is 8 inches. And now I can go ahead and use this information here to help me find the length. The length is 2 times 8 minus 1, which is 15 inches. So there's my answer. The dimensions are 8 inches by 15 inches.